All right.
I was hoping to get through the day without being threatened with physical violence.
It's not going to happen. See, what you didn't know, David, and I'm very sorry for this. We probably all should have been more transparent, honest with you, but this is really an intervention into your business. Now, I've been telling Cecil how many struggles you've had recently and the fact that you're thinking about closing down. So I was just going to say, like, Erich and Lauralee.
If I could walk away tomorrow, I would lock them suckers up and walk away.
Well,
middle fingers in the air as I'm walking away.
Okay, that's what's happening here.
You guys sound like you want a second shop in Kansas. Let me tell you.
Yeah, Kansas.
I don't think Kansas is the place for me.
Why? What's so great about Ohio?
There's
Nothing.
nothing
Been to
great
Ohio,
about
okay?
Ohio.
It's like Kansas.
We are far closer to the mountains. And if you've ever been to the Rockies, they are gorgeous.
Wow,
Gorgeous. Okay, then. See, within a half a day's drive, you are knee deep in Rocky Mountain beauty.
In 3 hours drive, I can be in Appalachians.
That's not the same.
Appalachians. Oh my God. No.
I love it.
It's not the
It's
same.
the Appalachians. It's the Appalachian Mountains. I swear. Not Appalachians.
Fine. The Appalachians Mountains.
They're gonna, I hate to tell y'all, but if anybody ever hears this, they're gonna hang me up here. I'm telling you. It's terrible. I'm terrible.
I'm going to go ahead and
All
say
right.
it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's different, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Lauralee, how you doing?
I'm real good. Lucas, how you doing?
I'm good. Erich, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Better than I was.
I heard. Cecil, how you doing, buddy?
I couldn't be any better if I was two of me.
I understand.
I like that tree behind you.
Yeah, that's a nice tree.
They were going to put a cactus. There was supposed to be a cactus back there. And Cecil slapped the cactus out of the way. He's like, I don't want the cactus. He just slapped it right out of the way.
It's pretty great. I mean, glad we got it on video. Thanks, David. So we're here today, and this is an interesting story because Lauralee, you and Erich wanted to come here and share a pretty emotional story, a pretty deep story. And we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to share it in all its glory, right? We wanted you to be able to share your emotion. We wanted you to be able to share in a big way what happened, because I know it's been very emotional. And I've been in your shoes before. I know what this feels like. And we also asked Cecil to be here because Cecil kind of guided y'all through it and was at that 30,000 foot level. And sometimes when we're going through something like this, we have one perspective. And I think it's important to have Cecil's perspective here. And that's because I'm sure he saw things differently than y'all did. And I think that maybe the fact that he saw those things differently is part of what helped get this turned around. And I mean, this was a pretty miraculous turnaround. And so, Lauralee, why don't you tell us the story?
Well, we can go back as far as you'd like. It's a tedious story, so I'll just kind of wrap it up quickly. We wanted to be absentee owners. And in order to do that, we overlooked some things that were going on. And even though we physically saw and knew some things were going on, we allowed the policies to be broken, and we gave a lot of reasons for excuses. And at the end of the day, that cost us an enormous amount of money. It cost us our team. Looking back now, I feel like it probably cost us a lot of other team members, and I probably was placing blame in the wrong place. And it ultimately almost cost us our business.
So let's take it back a step. When did you start the shop?
Started in 2009.
Okay. And y'all were a couple when you started the shop?
Nope.
Okay. Tell us a little bit of the timeline.
So I worked at a Chrysler dealership for the majority of my career. Spent some good time in Independence as well. So I was pretty pretty well-rounded technician. And as the old story goes, technician turned owner. So basically, when the housing market fell apart, as we all know, Chrysler announced a bankruptcy. Consumers are not well educated on how that stuff works, and so the work went away. It's making pretty good money at the dealership, and the work just went away. I think the deciding factor. I've always wanted to start a shop, but the deciding factor was I watched two guys get in a fight over an oil change, and that's how bad it got. And I pretty much was done at that point. So I started putting some stuff together to get the shop going. I had a lot of equipment already because I was doing some side work at the house, and the age old thing that we're doing. But so in July of 2009, I jumped ship, put my 2 weeks in, and opened my doors. And pretty much was sitting at a desk wondering what the heck I'd just done, because I'd quit a job that I was at for quite some time, making good money. Well, was making good money until the market fell apart. But, and I did the traditional things that, owners or techs-turned owners typically do. So, I go in there and all I'm thinking is, man, if I can just turn out some work, get some customers in here, we're making money. I didn't know anything about KPIs. I didn't know anything about process. I didn't know anything about shop manuals and SOPs. And I did that for 3 years in a 1,200 square foot building that I found. And I met Lauralee in 2011. I was engaged prior to that, and I actually caught...
I'm not a home wrecker, by the way. I did not break it.
No. There was some time
Just
between...
so we're clear here.
There's some time between this.
You? Sure. We'll let him finish his story.
No, there's definitely some time between, but...
We understand. Listen, we know that y'all are probably in the same building. And we also know she's got a reputation for abusing people. And if you're in trouble, okay?
I got the door barricaded. It's blocked up over here, so we're good.
Sure,
we're good.
Okay.
And I got a window out to the shop, so I can flag a tech down to get some help.
Okay. Good. Okay.
So we're good.
We'll make sure.
But yeah, so there was some time between, but I was engaged, and I had learned some things about a relationship that everybody dreads in a relationship, and we decided to talk that out and work through it. And a couple weeks later, I started going through bank accounts, and I was pretty busy. And I'm like, man, I really should be growing this bank account more than I'm seeing it. And my suspicion led me to start digging. And I found that she was actually moving money out of our accounts. And I was unaware of it. And that was pretty much the end of all that. So, I left and sent her packing. And ran my shop for a while by myself. Met Lauralee. I moved down to Cincinnati from where I was living up north, and that's kind of where I met Lauralee at. We were both living in the city at that point in time. Lauralee was relatively freshly back from New York. She'd spent about 10 years of her life there in her career in cosmetics and makeup. And she got on board with me, after Emma was born. And
No,
decided,
it was like when we found out we were pregnant, 2016 is when I...
Yeah, so she decided to leave her
15,
career
16.
In 16 after Emma was born. Right before she was born, she made the decision that, hey, I think I want to stay home. And we're like, well, okay, we'll have to figure it out. Which we tend to all do. So we figured it out financially and made it work. And so about that time, my dad was actually helping with books and reconciling parts and so forth. Very basic stuff. Still was not very privy to operate in a business. At this time, we had moved into a larger building as well. So we went from about 1,200 square foot to about 5,200, 4,800, somewhere around there. And my dad comes from the banking industry, so of course I felt very good with running financials with him. Now my dad is a very old school guy, so he's very conservative, and we know in business, if you're conservative, you're probably not moving forward. There's an element of risk taking with that, and he wasn't trying to hear none of that risk taking. So Lauralee started coming in the shop and helping a little bit, and then one day he just looked at me and said, "Hey, in January I'm done. I'm gonna fully retire." And I said, "Oh. Well, that wasn't very much time, couple months. So I went home, told Lauralee, and she grabbed the reins, and Dad trained her on what his processes were, so she could pick that up. And then we quickly learned that there were some holes in our processes. We grew stagnant, about $500,000. I tried a lot of different things to come out of that stagnant situation. We weren't doing bad, but we were stagnant. And I actually reached out to the editor at the time of Ratchet and Wrench, and he guided me towards Elite Worldwide. And we took a coach, Mike Cost, fantastic person, excellent to work with, the knowledge base, extremely big. He was an absentee owner, multiple shops. So we learned everything about KPIs, processes, so forth with them. They helped us develop all of that. And that's when things started growing pretty quickly. Things started moving pretty good. And then in 2017, we moved to our facility that we're in right now, which is 12,000 square foot in one building, about 3,800 square foot in our satellite building. And we are on par to try to purchase this property at this point. And I would say within a couple of years, we'll probably purchase this. So that's kind of where we're at.
So a couple months back, and I don't mean to get you in trouble with Lauralee over here, but a couple months
I ain't
back,
worried about her.
You reached out, and we had a pretty emotional conversation. Pretty tough conversation.
It was.
Tell me what was going through your head, because we've been friends for a while now, and I could feel the sheer panic. Like, I could literally feel you in a panic of I don't know what to do here. Tell me how you were feeling.
Yeah, so we had a really good staff at our other building. We moved, I quickly learned in business that we're never going to retain staff forever. That's always a misnomer to new business owners, I believe, especially in shops, is that we get this great team and we're just going to keep them forever. I personally did not have enough hindsight to say, hey, these people may leave. Yeah. And of course, we're developing a business which has its pain points as well. And so we moved over to the new building with that and brought those guys over. And then we had a big shift in employees. And with those pain points, we have employees that don't want to buy in on the process or our ideologies or any of those things. So, that's tough to swallow too, and frustrating to try to get somebody to buy in. Yeah. And some people aren't ever going to buy in to your process. They just are not they're not your people. They're not the same thinkers as you. So we had a decent amount of turnover. Especially when we got into the big building. We're in the big building. We got big overhead. We got to push. And we maybe have pushed in the wrong direction or pushed the wrong way on people. I'm a guy that will take fault when things go wrong in a shop. I'm 100% responsible for the things that go wrong in our shop. There's nobody else but me to blame. So we had big turnover, which discouraged me. And I started to get pretty burned out. When we opened the shop, we were short-staffed. We have a large facility, and I essentially worked myself to death. And when I get stressed out, I want to work more. And so it was kind of a parabolic thing that just kept sucking me in further and further to the point where I got into burnout, to the point where I struggled with some pretty heavy mental issues. And then all of these items started coming to a head with our service riders and car count, and we just we would come up with processes and say, hey, these are things. And they would just blatantly say, well, I'm not doing that. I don't believe that, this and that. And, so it just wasn't really going the way that we wanted to push people. And our car count declined and continued to decline.
Drastically.
And at this point now, I've been hit in the head so many times with so many different things from so many different avenues that I just kind of gave up. I really didn't want the shop anymore. We both seriously talked about auctioning the shop off, not even selling. We did eventually have a shop company reach out to us that was acquiring shops. They're specifically right now acquiring shops in the Midwest. I had a great conversation with the man. I know how to evaluate a business. I knew where we were going to land, which was pretty much exactly where he landed with his evaluation. And I wasn't happy with that number. Too much work, too much time spent, too many sleepless nights, too much stress. I feel like I should be compensated more for it, as we all do in business. So my thought was we need to pump up our cash flow. I need to pump up the cash flow and get that going so we can value the business better. And at this point, I still wanted to let go of the business. But, pumping up cash flow from a near-dead business is extremely difficult.
Yeah, and I remember that conversation because it was emotional for me, right? Because I remember being there. I remember being in that spot. And then I realized how much you had on your shoulders, financially speaking, right?
Yeah.
And man, my heart poured out in that. Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but dude, that was heavy for me because I realized just how big of a situation it was. Do you feel comfortable sharing where you were right then? I mean, you were pretty close to the brink of a couple different scenarios, right?
We were.
Sure.
Yeah, I obviously struggled with the notion of actually keeping the business. I did get to a point where I didn't care what happened to the business anymore. I didn't care if it just fell apart and people came after us. I mean, the biggest saving grace for us is we don't have huge amounts of debt compared to most businesses, especially for the size of our company.
Right.
But mentally, it took me down a very, very dark path. I contemplated some things that I would rather not talk about.
Of course.
But, there was basically my brain was in survival mode of how do I get out of this situation? How do I remove this stress?
Yeah, we went from running like, a $20,000-$25,000 week. And I think the week that it broke for us, the week that we said, everybody's gone, like we're gutting it tomorrow when we go in, we closed with $4,000 one week.
$4,325.
And I saw that closing number and Eric came home and I said, Monday, everyone's gone Monday. That was the only way I was staying on board. I was already looking for jobs and interviewing other places. I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. I was out. I think I even came to the ASOG board and told you guys, I don't think I deserve a spot on the board. I can't lead. Yeah. I'm a bad leader.
Well, prior to that situation, I had reached out to you, Lucas, because I knew that you had recently went through letting go of an advisor. Yeah. It's a big deal. I have 4 years with this man. I liked him. I still don't feel any sort of way about it. At the end of the day, it's business.
We just didn't want to believe what was happening. We didn't want to believe it.
And it was an ignorant thought process from my end of things for the simple fact that it was a belief thing. I can't believe this is happening. We had such a good thing going. We were doing over $25,000 a week. We would hover in the high 20s to low 30s, mid 30s, pretty consistently. And so, of course, I start digging through financials. I start digging through processes. I start pulling tickets and inspections and auditing all this stuff. And I start just finding unbelievable amounts of holes, no documentation of anything. handfuls of cars going through where they got absolutely no process. And then I go out and I talk to a technician and they're like, well, they told me not to do a process. Well, why? You need to do a process every single time we do these cars. And it just, no one cared. No one cared, no matter how many times I said something. So I started digging. I found a lot of discrepancies. And then once I found those, I was kind of like, well, how do I prove to myself that I need to do what I think I need to do? And that's when I reached out to you. And, to write $1 million a year in sales is extremely difficult. I can't do it. I go out of my mind in like 4 weeks. I'm not a great service advisor, as most prior technicians aren't. I'm good with people. I can diffuse situations extremely well. I can talk to people well. I just don't like the sales part of it. I don't like telling people that, hey, you need $5,200 worth of work on this poor car, And they're like, I'm not that guy. But, so, once we started doing that and I saw this evidence of just the sheer lack of
Care.
Documentation, care, processes, following anything, any sort of thing, I actually started calling some of my good clients out of the blue, some good clients that I have interpersonal relationships with that I hadn't seen for some time. And I just asked them, I was like, man, I know this is a weird phone call. I said, I'm trying to figure out some things in my business here. We got some things going on. Tell me a little bit about our service advisor and tell me a little bit about your experience in the process of the intake and the receiving of your vehicle. And a lot of people gave me good things to say, that I heard good things, and not all of it was bad. And I know that our advisor had very good rapport with people. I mean, we had a situation where somebody tried to bash us on a local community forum. They were completely out of line and incorrect in the situation. And the community actually stepped up and praised our service advisor. So I know he's doing a great job of rapport. Something happened, though, at one point in time.
Until he wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. something happened. I don't know what it is. It's not my place to ask. I can tell you that it was enough to be concerned for him. Depression, maybe feeling.
Hold on. Time out. So you're finding these holes and you go to the service advisor and say, hey, this car that just got checked out didn't have a DVI on it. 300% rule wasn't followed. What's going on? And his answer was,
there's a different excuse for every single thing.
So many.
I mean, how much time you got for excuses? But that was my fault as an owner, is accepting that instead of putting my foot down and saying, this is our process, this is the reason we follow this process, and this is why this process is important for our business, and because we don't want to do a disservice to our clients.
We gave a long leadway. And a very tiny rope is what we should have gave him, but we gave him a long rope. and essentially, we hung ourselves with that rope.
By the time you got to the end of that rope, I mean, Lauralee, you were upset. I don't think I've ever seen you mad about anything.
Anybody would be upset because
she had already checked out. Yeah, she had already checked out. I was the only one that was still grinding myself to pieces on it. She was trying to help, but she was also checked. Now, coupled with this situation, we had made some bad choices in hiring. We had an excellent technician that got chased off, went to a competitor up the road. I lost him in this couple weeks' time. I had 2 technicians that might have had 10% efficiency. I mean, it was insane. And, this happened because I allowed it to happen because I didn't care anymore. So coupled with technicians that didn't want to move work and wanted to sit in a bathroom all day or sit in a chair or do something stupid, and then the lack of care up front. I want to put on the record, though, that I don't think the lack of care was intentional. like I said, I feel like there was something else going on because it's not his statute of personality.
We had 3 years of good, and then this twist, and then a very strong 7 months of bad.
Yeah. And it could have.
We kept thinking it would turn around, you know? And I think that's why we hung out so long, is we kept thinking, oh, this is going to turn around. This will turn around.
But this is when I called you.
Yeah.
And I asked for your opinion on it. Should I let this guy go?
The sales go, like, were they still maintaining
No.
the sales?
No.
So
They were kind of going like this,
okay.
you know?
So you would have a
It would
bad
putter
week,
along and then
then
get
they
these.
and then a bad week, and then a good week.
They would get these random fire-offs where you got a little bit of hope back, you know?
And so we were like, oh, it's ramping back up. We really saw that around like August of 2022. And I started, this is what made me actually pay attention. We have a shop owner, David Philhaber. He came through and he was going to some conference in Nashville or something. He called and said, hey, I'd like to come up through your shop and have an oil change done. Well, I didn't really tell my service advisor that I was having a shop owner come. I just had him come and I said, I want to know what your idea of our shop is after you leave. The notes he gave me were like, I was standing there with my mouth open, like, none of this is what you should have experienced. And he looked at me and he goes, I expected way more out of you. And that, like,
Whoa, what did he say? Hold on, I want to hear the
me.
notes. What's the notes?
Just like that my service advisor had no trust in our team. He did not think that the technicians were skilled enough to be in the facility.
No inspection?
That let me know right then that was one part of our reason for tech turnover, is because there was not a supportive service team giving them any love.
Yeah.
He was told to not inspect his car. He ran it through the oil change and gave it back to him all like disheveled. Like, I guess it wasn't even like really put back together the correct way. He got no notes. He got none of what we set in place for the experience to be like. So I started sending in secret shoppers. People that had never been to our shop before. I was just giving work away. Hey, come, I'm going to give you a tire rotation. Just go to my shop and tell me what you think. And I had a form that they had to fill out. And I consistently saw in every form, there was no customer service. There was no process. None of it. I had a man that wanted to spend money here with us. And he wouldn't call him back to book the job.
I'm completely, I'm trying to understand here. I am so non-confrontational. I don't want to like have to talk to anybody about anything. And I don't want to approach anybody and ask them why they didn't do their job. Like, I hate that. It gives me anxiety. I want to avoid it like the plague. And so I am very easy to just dismiss. But I am. But if I got to the point where I had to send in a secret shopper, I'm done. I'm firing everybody and we're burning the place down because no.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like,
we're right there,
guy,
man.
That's where I was.
The guy hands you like the guy that's non-confrontational. And well, no, hold on. The guy gives you no DVI on this ticket. One time, I go to him and I go, "Hey, why is there no DVI on this ticket?" Well, you see, what happened was excuse. So okay, but we have to do this every single time. You understand that, right? And he's like, It's like we put this in place, you and I. Oh, okay. The next one, I'm losing my mind. I'm not firing. I hate firing people, but I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I will lose my ever-flipping mind.
I mean, I'm kind of numb to the firing thing at this point. I mean, it's just part of...
It's not him. Well, it's not even,
well,
it's not
listen.
firing. No, hold on. I want an answer. Like,
Listen.
It's too easy to fire that person. I want an answer. I need to understand. Like,
because
I'm
if we
pressing you guys because I need to understand. This doesn't make sense.
Well, at the end of the day, man, I mean,
if
it's
we
like...
fired him, we were then going to have to be the people that did everything. And we were not trying to be the people that did everything. We wanted
Y'all just resonated with David. I can't resonate with that. Fine, get out of the way. I'll just do it myself.
The whole situation here was tolerance of something that should have been intolerable. I tolerated low production from my staff in the back for far too long. This is all 100% my fault. The whole situation but I tolerated the lack of care and ability up front. I tolerated way too much bull crap.
I mean, you're falling on the sword, and I appreciate that. But
those are facts.
I'm interested in the mindset. Like, so he tells you an excuse. I'm just curious, like.
Well, at that point, I was done.
What's the
David?
internal dialogue look like?
Yeah, at that point, I was done, man. I mean, I just didn't care.
Then, because we had, like, I was harping on these technicians are not efficient and productive. They're not in line with what we need to have in line. Now, looking back, it was all probably due to service. But my service person was the most loyal person in the building. He never called off. In 4 years, the man didn't come to work. Like, he came to work. Like, he was not sick. He was the most loyal. He had deep relationships. He was bringing in fleet work. There were so many things that we were loving about it that we were overwilling to look some of the things that were going on. And then the things were getting cringier and cringier. And I think I was looking in the wrong place for the blame. So when I'm trying to be like, this technician's not working. Now, there were many that were not working. At the end of the day, that meant Eric was going to have to go back to wrench. If we get rid of service, that means Eric's going to have to go right service because I can't do either of those jobs. And we were just trying to keep it off of his back because he was already like mentally declining with the things that were going on. And I was like, there's no way this man can take anything else. So part of it was to protect us. At the end of the day, it didn't protect us. It didn't protect our staff. And it came to an ugly head. And here we are.
That speaks to me. And here's the thing is one of the things that Eric and I talked about that night is like, it kind of came down to that. And there were multiple times that I found myself in that situation. And there were a lot of times in life that as opposed to confronting the situation, I tried to avoid confronting the situation. And all that did was make the confrontation that much worse when I finally did have to deal with it.
I've seen you almost get into fist fights with people on your camera. What are you talking
not since
about?
I started the shop. That's been years and years and years and years.
He's a different man now.
I have video.
He's a different man now.
Otherwise.
So all right. Let's move this to Cecil now, because Cecil, I'm not gonna lie, you hear a story like that, and my first thought is I don't know if a business like that can be saved, right? Because that's a mess, man, and the fact that the owner has partially given up,
and we had no money left.
What do we do now?
Plus, we had no money.
No money. Financials were gone.
No.
Part of the staff is pretty much gone at this point. I mean, they might be in the building, but they're gone.
$50,000 a month in overhead.
The way I look at it is I've got a shop. I'm in a city. There are clients. I've got all the equipment. Of course, it can be saved. All right. What happens, or what had happened was, they wanted to be absentee owners, but they didn't set it up for them to be absentee owners. Meaning, there are certain things that you need to pay attention to, whether you're an absentee owner or not, or someone else needs to pay attention to in your business. And, what are the inspections? One of the first things we often do when we walk into a business that is not doing well is we do a work order quality control. I look at the work order. How old are the cars? What are we finding? What are we selling? Before we blame the techs, we often interview techs and service team and try to figure out, is there any trust here? Are there trust issues, etc. If you had backed that up, and maybe 2 years prior, when you were paying attention, you were looking at your opportunity, and you watched your opportunity fall, then you could say to yourself, oh, I better go look at work orders. Why is there not enough opportunity here? So car comes in, it's got 100,000 miles on it. It's a Chrysler. What do I expect? Well, I expect it to have $3,000 or $4,000 worth of crap needs to be done. That's what I expect. And instead, what I see is an inspection sheet that's either not filled out or it's all green.
Pencil it.
To me, that's like, red flag. All of a sudden, the check engine light's on, right? Check engine light's on. Is there really a problem here? Well, it's not, the machine's still running, right? And it's still running okay. But that flag right there should have told me you've got an issue. right? We're not inspecting cars. Well, why aren't we inspecting cars? No management. Nobody's making it happen, right? So you look at this and you say, okay, wow, here's a shop that, I don't know, a year ago was doing $25,000 a week approximately, and now it's doing $4 million. Well, of course the owners are in a panic. And how do we fix that? So the first conversation I think was, well, we need more car count. We need more car count. Oh, wait a minute. Are we doing inspections? Are we?
There he goes.
Am I there?
Yeah, you're there. Go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of trouble in my probably in my internet. So, are we doing inspections? Are we? I don't want to just add car count. I want to make sure that we're doing inspections properly, and I want to make sure that everything is working the way that it's supposed to. Are you guys? Am I still here? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
We're listening.
and you can hear me well. All right.
Yes.
And so, but you have to, you have to stand back from your business. You have to look at that 30,000-foot view. And, I think the second thing, you talk to the owners and you try to figure out what's going on. Are they really completely checked out? Is there, can we get them back invested in their company? And then the next thing was send me some phone calls. I want to hear what's going on. And I think when they sent me phone calls that I could listen to, it actually for them was like a huge wake-up call.
Yeah.
I remember it was a Friday. I sat down to listen to the phone calls, and I'm talking to him on Saturday going, you got to fire this guy. He's got to go Monday morning first thing. You cannot have this guy in front of anybody.
What was it in the phone call, Cecil? What did you hear that made you say that?
Oh my! I can't even. I've listened to tens of thousands of service advisor phone calls. The first phone call I got was actually someone from an association looking for Lauralee because she was going to speak.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and the service advisor, the guy that was there, was like, "Well, she's never around here anymore," and you're like, "Okay." And the woman was like, "Well, hey, I'm from this association. I understand if this is the the gatekeeper, right? Hey, well, we don't just push calls through to her all the time." But he wasn't. That isn't what it was. He was like, "Oh no, she's been pushed out of the business." That was the exact words he used.
Holy
it was like,
cow!
Oh
Seriously?
my God! Right?
Yes.
Oh my God! We got a problem. And then
Her name's on the building. What is he talking
How
about?
damaging is that in a
Pushed
professional career? How damaging is that?
We were supposed
Yeah, I
to
mean-
speak on a panel like 3 weeks later, and she thought I was gone.
Yeah, she thought you were. I don't know. Maybe you passed away or something. The way it was being talked about, it wasn't even that. I was like, well, I got rid of her because she was terrible. And even the way he spoke, his attitude, everything was like, this is an inconvenience. I don't want to talk to this person. And he was just not. He was not helpful. And that was the gist of every phone call I listened to. This is a person who somewhere along the way got ruined for whatever reason. Maybe once he took over kind of managing and they decided to be absentee owners, the pressure got to him and he didn't talk to him and he didn't, but he felt like, I deserve better than this or whatever. And it just went downhill from them.
So, Cecil, let me ask you this. Because I have been in that state of panic before. Mm-hmm. And sometimes getting through to somebody that's in that state of panic is not as simple as saying, oh, don't worry, this can be fixed. It's not that big of a deal. Let's just do this, right? I have a feeling that Erich wasn't as easy to get through to as simply calling and saying, do this. Tell me.
I don't think either one. I mean, it's okay. We got 3-month window here. We need to get this fixed. Are you guys willing to do what it takes? There's kind of sometimes there's a hard conversation as a coach that you have to have. Like, are you guys? Do you really? I don't think that most business owners, especially techs that became shop owners, I think they're just like, oh, I'll just go to work for somebody. I don't think they realize what they're really saying. I'm going to give up this dream that I've had, that I've worked for 10 years, because somebody else is literally ruining it for me, rather than go fire that person, grab the bull by the horns, get the processes back in place, make sure we're checking out cars. I think, when we recognize, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks in, And it was like, okay, holy smokes, I know exactly what the problem is. Okay, now we know what the problem is. What's the solution? And so we got to terminate this guy. I think I said, do you know anybody that can answer the phone with a smile like, hey, thank you for calling. We're glad to have you. Anybody that you could hire just to even answer the phone and book an appointment. And they were like, yeah, we got this gal that we know really well. We could get her in here. And, dang it. I think Erich went to work on Monday. I'm pretty sure he wasn't happy to go to work and terminate somebody, but he terminated the guy. And, at the end of the week, we had a great week. It was like,
I had just terminated my entire shop as well, including my lead technician that left. So by Monday, I had a new hire in the back. He had been there for 2 weeks, 27, younger guy, not totally green, but green enough. And I remember I had let go of the other guys the prior week, and then that's when Cecil and I had the conversation on Friday. He basically said, well, I think you got your answer. You know what you need to do. And I said, yeah. And that's when it came. And I said, we got to let it go. So it was funny. It's not funny, but it is. So we let him go. And he took it with a bit of grace, I will say that. He wanted to know why, but it's not something that I was willing to talk about. I just said it was performance and financial, and that was it. And he went on about his way. So I went out back, and of course that was 1,000,000 pounds let off my shoulders as well, as we all know when that happens. For sure. And I went out back, and my one last remaining technician that had been with me for only 2 weeks, he's like, where is everybody? And I said, well, man,
everybody.
I let him go. Baby. And he goes, you what? And his eyes were so big. And I said, hey, man, why don't you come on in my office here? And so I had realized
he probably thought he was being let go.
he probably did. I said, hey, man, let's go talk about it real quick. And he obliged and came along. And so he sat down and I said, listen, man, here's where we're at. I said, you've been here for 2 weeks. You've seen the nonsense going on with the lazy technicians and the things that weren't happening, the low production. We had billed the week prior $4,325, I think it was, for the entire week, where we were normally billing 25 plus. And I sat him down. I said, man, here's the deal. I said, we're going to start over. I said, I've let go of everybody. You're the only man standing. Me and you are going to learn to estimate. We're going to learn to use this tech metric real well. And that's what I did. I taught him to estimate. I went out in the shop. We had hired Savannah a couple weeks prior, and her start date was that week. She started the day that had happened. So that couldn't have worked out any better. So Lauralee came along, helped her, trained her. So her and Lauralee worked the front counter. We went in the back. I bumped out work. He bumped out work. And then what we were both doing is actually estimating in the shop, where we normally estimate in the office with the service advisor. And so we were doing the estimates. And then what we were doing is utilizing Techmetrics, text and SMS and email to send the estimates. And then what we would do is about 10 minutes after we sent that, 15 minutes later, I would run up front and I say, hey, Lauralee, just call these people, check on them, see if they have any questions, anything like that on this estimate. Surprisingly, it worked quite well. The closing ratio was pretty good.
Way better than I thought that would work.
Yeah, man, it worked real well, actually, as David already knows. So, that week we turned, what did we do, 21,000 and some change that week.
It with just
instant turnaround.
1.5 tech,
no staff,
it was
right.
No staff.
And
it
it's
was
crazy.
wild.
So
had 6 people in the building prior to that.
So Erich, when you realized that's what was going to happen, did your chest get tight when you walked into work that morning? Right. I've been there, and I know what it feels like. Like, oh man, I'm taking back over the advisor position. I'm taking back over a tech position. That's heavy.
It is. I was definitely worried about it, but I also have this odd ability to step up when I'm under tremendous stress as well. There becomes a point that I'm like, it maybe. So I kind of came in, took it in head on. I pretty much rehearsed what I was going to say in my head the night before, all night. I didn't get a lick of sleep that night.
We were both just awake.
Both of us up all night, tossing and turning. I got up super duper early, man. I think I come into the shop at like 5:30 or something, and was in my office, and he walked in, put his lunch in, and I said, "Hey, man, you got a minute to talk?" He's like, "Yeah." So he sat down, and he sat down with his notepad like he was going to take, and we were going to hammer that day out, right? And I just said, "Man, I've had to make a really, really difficult decision over the weekend. And I've thought a lot about it. And I said at this point, I think we need to go our separate ways." And once that came out, you mentally internalize that and you kind of release it in a form of words. But at the same time, this is a higher level position. It pays well. Typically, your service advisors are pretty intelligent dudes. So you have to be very careful about how you go about that. Because you can open yourself up for lawsuits and many other things.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was very short and just said it was a performance and financial based decision. He knew we were struggling financially. And really, at the end of the day, I couldn't have paid him after this week. So it was something that was going to happen regardless.
One way or another, yeah.
Yeah, it was going to end.
So,
but he never came to the table to be like, let's try to figure this out as a team financially. Let's try to figure out how we can make this better. It just was like, just continually like, okay, well, that's cool. So if we don't I don't know where he thought the money was supposed to come from, like long term.
They never do.
It's funny because we were
come out of thin air. Like, how do you think we make money here? If the car doesn't go, we don't get paid.
It's the tree in the backyard.
Yeah, right.
Just go grab it off of it. It's all out there.
So here's the crazy thing. So we were actually, over the last couple of years, had been molding him because my ultimate goal is to buy a couple more shops. I would like 3 or 4 more.
What is wrong with you?
I'm still trying to figure this out, David. But
some guys are just psychologically unstable.
I can't get the same rush. I can't get the same rush I had in the military, so we got to do it this way. So we had been kind of training him and trying to position him in a situation to where we could develop him as a general manager. He had the longest time with us. At that point in time, he was very trustworthy to us. So we started developing him that. One of those processes is we teach them how to look at balance sheets and P&Ls. Now, of course, we leave out the last page or two of the P&L.
Yeah.
So, a couple weeks prior to this situation happening, we were having a lot of meetings about how we could get this business pumped back up. And he sat down. I specifically remember a day he sat down in the office, and I'm just in here with my head banging off the computer, just trying to figure out what's going on. And he's like, "Hey man, I got a question for you." And I was like, "Sure." And so he sits down on my couch in here and he goes, "Well, I just can't understand where all the money went." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I don't know where the money went." He's like, "How in the world did all that money disappear?" And at this point, I'm pretty confused by the conversation. I have no idea where we're going with this. And I said, I said, this business is very expensive to run. I was like, we got $50K in overhead, or almost $50K in overhead a month. I was like, "Well, what kind of money are you talking here?" And he's like, "Well, it was like $670,000 or something." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, that's what you guys are making." And he's like, "I saw it right on a P&L." And I said, "I don't think you were looking at that P&L right." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw it in the number." And so,
he was seeing the profit line at the top, not the bottom.
Here's a big mistake that we make. We feel like I don't want to show them the net profit, so I don't talk about it.
Well,
he saw that.
Eventually. But there was a cartoon online the other day. There's this whole thing with techs that think all owners are SOBs that are just stealing everything. And
I saw that.
And
I saw
owners
that
and all.
too.
And so there's a cartoon with this pipeline, and there's a starving little tech down there with a drip coming out of the pipeline, and he's getting this little drip. And at the end, there's this huge thing coming out, and there's this big fat owner out there just slurping up all this gravy coming out of this pipeline. And I'm thinking there needs to be a new cartoon because where's the other drips? Where's the rent and the
Right.
utilities
Yep.
and the
Yeah,
insurance
exactly.
and the benefit packages and
Yeah.
the accountants and all of this other stuff. If we don't explain it to them, they think you charged $130 an hour. You paid me $30. You kept 90 or you kept 100, and you're ripping me off. And they don't get it. They don't understand that the owner, in many cases, at the end of the day, is making less than they are,
Yeah.
especially if you're not running your business correctly. Here's the
Which
sad
we
thing about-
definitely were.
Yeah,
Making less.
Well, but here's the sad thing about this: it didn't have to happen.
Right.
Okay,
It didn't.
It was like Erich said. It's my fault. It's poor management, and so I know the KPIs I need to look at. Okay, so 300% rule. Do 100% of the cars get inspected? Well, no, they don't. They never do. Not in any shop. If the car was here last week and it comes back for something, we probably don't inspect it. But somebody needs to be looking and saying, are 97% of the cars being inspected? And if they aren't, then there has to be consequence. There has to be something that gets done.
Yeah.
It makes me nuts because I'm that guy. I'm like, in some ways, Dave and I have a lot in common. So I'm like, son of a bitch,
Poor
they're not
soul.
doing it. What the hell, right? And the fact is this: when employees realize that there's only one way to do the job, they will do the job that way. If you allow them to do the job a different way and to make whatever excuses there are, they will make the excuses. And I don't think they intentionally go, let's see if I can tank this business. I mean, there was no point that their guy said, I'm going to intentionally tank this business. No point. Okay.
No.
But there was a point where he thought, they're making $675,000 and they're telling me there's no money. And I'm upset because I should get paid more and I should do this. And all of a sudden his attitude shifted, right? And what I needed to do was catch that before it happened, right?
Yeah.
I needed to, when the vehicles weren't being inspected the first time, I needed to notice this, and I needed to say something. And the second time I needed to say something much louder. And by the third time, I needed to lose my crap, right? I mean, I needed to lose it and say, if you work here, this is how you do it. If not, I'm happy to let you go for no performance. And by the way, if you have your employee handbook written out where there are performance criteria in there, that is insubordinate. For no performance, you can terminate without any kind of consequence. Okay, and I don't care what state you're in. Now, in some states, you'll probably end up paying unemployment because, like it or not, they don't care what the reason is.
Right.
But you can terminate for lack of performance. It's called gross insubordination. When your manager, your owner says, this is what I need you to do, and it's not illegal or immoral, right? Then you have to do it. And if you don't, that's called gross insubordination. And if we had paid attention earlier, right? If we'd caught this 2 years ago when it started going downhill and said, okay, I got to get back in, I got to get interested, I got to pay attention. And I was looking at my KPIs, I was looking at the inspections, I was looking at what the opportunity was, what the sell rate was, et cetera, and I was watching that come down. That's when the hair on the back of my neck starts standing up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get in there and pay attention. Because if not, somewhere down the road, I'm out of business. And I don't want that to happen.
Well, and that's why I say it was 100% on me. We had SOPs, we had employee handbooks, we have all of these processes in place. We train for multiple weeks with this stuff typically. And at the end of the day, I tolerated instead of terminated. I tolerated low-performing technicians for way too long, which put us in a financial situation, and then we turn around and have a situation up front where we're not selling, and it's kind of the perfect storm of how fast you want to lose your money. Now I did that P&L situation really ground on me hard, because I went home and I'm telling Lauralee about it. And then I wake up the next day and I'm going, this dude's in a straight laid down thinking we're making close to $700,000 a year.
Right.
And I mean, I think most people probably would. And at that point I went in, I pulled the P&Ls and I said, let's have a conversation. And I actually showed him the rest of the P&L, and I educated him further on the end of that P&L. And he looked right up at me and he stood up and he said, "You're freaking crazy." He's like, "There's no freaking way I'd do that for that kind of pay." And that's when he, I think, realized that we take on a whole bunch of BS for very little money. There's not one CEO in the country that runs a major corporation that would deal with the crap we deal with for that kind of pay. Would never happen.
100%.
But by cleaning up the business and running it right and holding people accountable, you could make $400,000.
Absolutely.
In 12 months. I mean,
absolutely.
It's not. You go from a business, losing whatever it was losing, $20,000 a month, to a business that could make $40,000 a month, just by making sure that the things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
Just in the changes, we're showing 10,000 more than we normally run. In the last few weeks, we're in the 30s now. There's a couple weeks we've hit some 40s. So we're getting some traction back, reeling some people back in. Another big issue was client retention. We didn't take the client retention situation seriously, which ultimately creates the demise as well.
We played a lot of PR games after this to get it back.
There was a lot of worry afterwards. Of course, we got the unemployment thing pretty quick. Ohio is one of those states that's you're getting unemployment if you get let go, period. It doesn't matter what it is. We had a guy that was addicted to drugs in our old building. We found out, let him go. He pulled unemployment. We appealed it 4 or 5 times. They took it anyways. Ohio's kind of wild about it. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what we pay into it for. So, it is what it is. And I'm not going to harp on something like that. There's no sense in it.
They didn't triple your percentage? Because that's what they did to me.
We take an awful lot of classes. We take an awful lot of employee classes.
Hey, David, when that happens, you know what you do, David? You raise your labor rate, buddy. Sorry. You got to pass those costs on.
You got to pass it on.
So let's talk about where we are compared to where we were. Cecil, you're the numbers man. Tell us.
I don't want to tell you how much money they made last month, because they might be mad at me for telling you that very large amount. When your business is running well, when you are paying attention and you're looking at the KPIs and you understand what they're telling you, and you're able to manage that well. We went, okay, we have this problem. We have to solve it this way. We have this problem. We don't know how to solve this one. Like, what about the customer retention? What about all the people he's chased away? What do we do? So we said, let's do these 5 things. Let's call people. Let's send out a message. Let's say, hey, there's been a change here, et cetera. Let's do this PR campaign to get these people back to us. And so you put solutions in places where you can. You put solutions in places even sometimes where you don't know what the real solution is. You're like, okay, I'm going to try this. And if this doesn't work, then I'm going to try something else, and then I'm going to try something else. And you keep making adjustments with your business. And I don't think you have to be there all the time. I have a lot of clients we work with who aren't. They spend a couple days in their business a week, and they do fantastically. But you have to be on the ball. I don't think you can be an absentee owner either, where you're not there. I think you have to pay attention to certain things.
Yeah.
And whoever you're going to have in that position, you have to have the finger on the pulse all the time of that person, because that's the person that's now kind of controlling your fate.
Yeah.
And so you got to be watching the numbers with them. You got to be talking about management, and I think you got to develop a relationship with that person that's a real good give and take with that that guy that's going to be your second or that gal that's going to be your second in command, because they have to come to you when they're worried about something. Or, hey, I don't know how to get these techs to do these inspections. Okay, great. Here's how we do that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, their numbers are great right now. I think they'll still think we have improvements, and certainly if they want to run multiple businesses, there's more we need to do to get set up for that. I know Lauralee's like, no way in hell am I going to do this. But, again, you can have one business and say, great, I make a decent living. I get a great paycheck. I always say, if I have $1 million business, I'm probably taking $100,000 as a paycheck for running it, and then I expect $200,000 as a net profit. So that's a $300,000 company. And if you're happy with that, that's great. If you're not, either build that one, go to $2 million, or whatever the facility can do. Understand what that looks like, and how you're going to get there. And then if that's still if that isn't it, then go to the second one or the third one. But don't be broke. Like, I can't make any money in one, so now I'm going to have three.
Yeah.
Right? It just drives me nuts. You're making 4%, 5% out of one shop where you should be making 20 net. And now you're going to buy a second shop to make another 4%. And
I really upset a shop owner one time. I said they came in and they were really upset, and we were talking about their scenario. And they said, well, we're getting ready to expand into 15 bays. And I said, if you can't make 3 bays work, you damn sure can't make 15 work, right? You're just the problems are gonna magnify. Cecil, I'm curious, how does it feel to take a business? And I know it was their hard work that did it, and their ownership of this.
I didn't do any of the work.
I know
oh my
that,
God, you did so much of the mental rebuilding of us.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Like,
how does it feel to take a business that's at the brink of disaster, at the brink of bankruptcy, and bring it back? How does that feel?
Well, I can tell you it's kind of funny, because I look at oh my God, we're ready to quit. We're at the brink of disaster. And I'm thinking, oh, it's not that bad. So inside, I'm like, oh, it's really not that bad. Do we have customers? Do we have, what was the worst was he terminated his best technician the week before I got involved. So he
left. Guys. I didn't terminate him.
Well, and we had to rebuild, right? That's the hardest part. But So Lucas, I don't do this for the money. I mean, I think some people, because I'm the guy that goes raise your labor rate and all that. Oh, Cecil's just money driven, and of course I'm teaching sales, and part of sales is it's about money, right? And running a business properly is about money. I mean, it's about, do I have enough money to feel safe, for the business to be safe, to pay my employees correctly? I mean, whatever that number is, David, that I can take care of my people and they can take care of their families. Do I have that? That's what that's about. I don't do this for that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I drive a nice truck. I wear nice clothes. I'm going to go on vacation right after this podcast. I'm going out to California to see my son. All of that is good. The reason I do this is because when that turnaround happens, I live for that. Yeah. That is the highest high that you can get, period, is when you help somebody go from, I don't know what to do, to, wow, oh my gosh, the world opens up in front of me. I have all this opportunity. Or, oh my God, I think I'm going to close this thing. And they were so down. I got to tell you, my first meeting, Erich was like, I didn't even know if I could get him off the floor. He wasn't even on the floor. He was like 20 feet in a pit, right? And
I remember that. That's what I'm saying is, and during our telephone call, I could feel the emotion. Yeah, right.
It was such a dark time.
Yeah,
and so
how distraught he was.
And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I know there's a problem here. And I was thinking about this podcast before I came on, and what I want you to understand, every business owner, if your business is going backwards, slowing down, if you're not making money, it's almost never about what you're charging. Yeah. It's almost always about the service that the customer gets and whoever's giving them that service. And in this case, our main person didn't have any faith in our staff, and we didn't catch it, we didn't fix it, etc., which led to further that person getting down, and we didn't fix that, which led to us getting down, and then no money in the bank, which is like end of the world. And like I said, I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. We can fix this. And funny thing, 3 months in, we fixed it. we in 3 months we're making
in a
some
big
pretty
way
good money.
too. Not just
Yeah,
like
in
a
a big
little
way.
fixed it,
No.
right? Laura Lee, you
really
want to talk
big
about
way.
how fixed is?
Well, my kid's still in private school. Thought she was going to not even be in school, period, because I couldn't afford to put gas in my car. When I tell you that we were broke,
With
It was like-
$600 in the bank account.
yeah, like I haven't been that broke since like high school. It was crazy. I was going to my parents. My parents were literally thinking I was about to have a nervous breakdown. I was like shaking, physically shaking all the time. It was not good. Like I could no longer think or form sentences. Eric was a mess. And we thought we were selling our house. We had our cars up for sale. We had motorcycles up for sale. I was selling purses and bags and shoes. Like you name it, we were trying to fire sale it.
Retirement
And-
money we shoved into the business.
Oh my
Personal
God.
money.
I took money from my parents. I went and asked them. I was like, can you float us a month? My father happily did that for us because he believed in us and he knew. He said, you just have changes you have to make and you have to get rid of some of your management. He saw it. My mom saw it. And we chose to not. I think we saw it. We chose to not make a move because we're stupid.
No,
And-
I avoided
or-
it because of the stress. That's why we just avoided it.
Or yeah, maybe we're just avoiding. I don't know. And now, like literally, like you said, on day one, May 15th, I'll never forget this day. It was pivotal. By the end of that,
We did like
week,
$5,000 that day.
like that day.
Yeah.
I called a fleet company and they were like, "We were wondering why you haven't been collecting payment." Nobody was even calling to get money. So
The amount of
like,
parts sitting in the back. I mean, I think we returned close to $10,000 worth of parts that were
we've
just
almost
stashed
got
in the
all
back.
that back. That was sitting on our credit card, just hanging out.
Found a ton of things
now
hidden.
We have that credit card paid off. We were able to use our travel points. Thank you, David, for that tip a couple years ago to get the ASTE all paid for. Because I was cursing you when that credit card was all the way jacked up because nobody was returning parts. I was like, God, David, blah. But
Keep those limits
that's,
low if you're not going to watch it.
that was my
Gotta
fault.
keep those limits low.
So, we were literally talking to the school about we need to pull our daughter out for next year. We're not going to be able to have her here. And we aren't having any of those conversations anymore. We've actually been able to invest. We've bought a new scan tool for the shop, which we thought we were never going to buy equipment ever again. We've physically brought in talent from other states that have been extraordinary. And they've been team players with our vision from day one. And that is so pivotal.
Our culture change was unbelievable.
It's crazy. And when you have those people, it makes all of the difference in the freedom of the finances. And it's just opened up and we're back to where we were. I'm able to take my whole team to ASTE. It's paid for. We don't have to worry about it. Are we going to have money to be able to eat on? I think we'll be straight. I did give up the financial side of it. The lady who did our bookkeeping came to me and said, I don't think that you belong here in finance. And I was super insulted and like, what are you talking about? I got us through COVID. I am the one. And I was not the one. I am not the one. Finance is not, I'm an artist. And so she was like, you need to go create content and do PR control because that's what you do and get into the public. And she took over finance and she keeps up with me every week. She's got money stashed away. I don't even know where it came from. That woman's got it stashed in piles. And we really aren't worried about like our bills. We have a good 2 months of savings already added up. We have very lofty goals with what that should look like. And it really is in part because she saw something and believed in us. She wanted to stay on board. When she saw the ship was failing, she asked to stay on board. She asked to do it for free. She said, take my pay and take it away. I will stay here with you. I believe in this job. And
I want to talk on that a little bit.
That was
So
important.
the culture that we had prior to this, we've always prided our shop in culture. We've always prided ourselves with customer service. Of course, when this stuff fell apart, we hired the wrong people, which took a toll. So, you hire a lazy technician and you've got a lead guy over here cranking. They're not going to like that at all. So we made some bad choices in hiring, which kind of ruined our culture. Whatever happened with up front and the attitudes with that changed the culture. And then, of course, I got down on myself, which changed the culture. As the leader, you are the developer of the culture. And when we got our staff changed over, the people that we have here are awesome. They all contribute in meetings. They speak up when things happen. They get together and figure things out together if they're having an issue with something. The amount of help that's offered between technicians in the shop is second to none. And
They bring
it's
solutions
really,
and not just problems.
yes, it helps with our mental capacity as well. You look at this and you're going, awesome, and now I'm coming into work happy and I'm looking forward to working with these guys. And
wanna be a part of it.
absolutely, man.
Oh my
You
God!
think
By
it has the
Sunday,
same effect on them?
Okay. Yeah.
It has the same effect on them, right? And we don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
about that. If we're burnt out, if we're beaten down, then they're probably feeling the same way, because we are the where the energy in the shop is derived from.
Toxicity and mental well-being is a cancer in the shop, and if it's not well, it spreads faster than you could ever imagine.
Sometimes you don't even see
you,
it coming.
you don't,
Yeah.
and you can literally take an entire shop out in a week with bad culture. It's incredible how quickly it moves through the shop.
But you can build it back just as quickly.
You can.
So-
You can.
So you guys had wanted to be out of the shop. How does it
Yeah.
feel to be back in the shop? I see you're both in the shop.
I'm
How
only
does
here
it
because
feel
of this
to be back?
podcast, Lucas.
Don't you?
No, she's not. She came in to work today. Although the
did
summer
reviews
she does
today.
stay away from the shop a lot because we have our little one. However, she still writes content, and we do all our own content marketing and branding in-house. We have some companies that move it around for us and do certain things, but all of the branding that you see from us, all the artwork, everything is developed by her. So, that's something she can do remotely. I come in every day. I manage. I've been floating in the shop as kind of a shop manager. Unfortunately, I'm a central hub right now because we straight have all new people. So I'm training, managing, and central hubbing an entire staff all at one time every day. But these people are receptive. They're communicative. So it sounds like it's more than it really is, because these people work with you because they do what they're supposed to do. And because if they don't understand something, they have questions about it and they ask, and we just hash it right there.
But
That plays a
honestly,
big part in it.
I think prior to letting everyone go and starting over, Erich specifically on Sundays, like at 2:00, he would start having like existential dread, like
Yeah.
chest,
Yeah.
headaches, not like, I could see him like shut down. Like around 2:00, it was crazy. And like, I was just pissed all the time. Like, I was just pissed off. So I already knew.
And
that
she's
my
such a
son
peach
was
to
gonna-
begin with.
This is my natural.
anything to do
Nah,
with it.
she's a peach, man. So when she gets mad, it's really scary.
I just knew there's going to be more crap, right? Like, I'm going to put a process forward. Nobody's going to do it. I done wasted my whole time building this, and nobody's going to support it. So what's the point? That's literally where I was. And Erich was just getting sick, like physically affecting him. And now Sunday comes, we're hanging out. I don't hear nothing of that. Like, I got a headache, my chest hurts. He's eating like a normal human. He's sleeping kind of. It's better to be
That's
back in the
just
shop.
That's shop owner sleep.
She
That's
said
not-
kind
that's not
of.
sleeping kind of. That's just shop owner sleep. Okay. That 3 a.m. Am I going to be able to pay that? Did I write that?
Did I do that?
call that?
That's why you gotta put the earbuds in and run that ASMR. And when you wake up and you're like, "Did I? Nope, no. I'm gonna play something sleepy and put me right back to sleep." Don't
So-
even think about it.
I do want to say something about this whole situation, though, that I definitely want to get it out before this is all over, is in ASOG specifically, Lauralee had reached out internally and into the moderators forum asking what to do, which she never asked me. I never knew she did that.
Surprise.
But just putting it out on the table, man, I'm more humbled than words can bring because of the key people that stepped up for us and helped us. There were a handful of key people, including Cecil, that helped us free of charge until we could get ourselves back.
That's amazing.
I don't know why they did it. I mean, they told me why they did it, and that's because they see something in our shop. In specifics of, we are very adamant about trying to change the industry as well as a lot of the people in ASOG and changing the industry. And, before I knew any of you guys years ago or any of this stuff, I literally left the dealership in 2009 to change the industry because I was so tired of it. I was so tired of the toxicity in the shop. And I'm not going to sit here and say, if somebody that knows me hears this, I was toxic when I was younger, for sure. I look back and I go, oh my God, how did anybody ever work with me? Knowledge with age, I guess, we mature and age and know that we're doing things we shouldn't be doing. But the amount of people, including you, Lucas, that took my phone call, and it was unbelievable how people poured out their care and saw something that I basically said, well, we're just a jacked up shop that doesn't even need to be in business anymore. I mean, we're just doing the wrong things. We're doing wrong by people, and the reality was we're just in a really bad spot because I didn't want to fully manage my shop, and I thought that we had things rolling, and I backed off at the wrong time. And, these people stepped up and helped us, and we definitely would not be standing here talking or in business if it wasn't for those people.
Well,
You can't be scared to ask
have
for
you as
help.
Part of the family. Yeah, I
There's
can
a lot
see
of
that.
great
It's embarrassing.
It is.
There's
It was
a lot
so
of
embarrassing. I was mortified to reach out.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I wrote that text and deleted the text and wrote the text and deleted it before I
remember
pressed
it.
send. It was the most humbling moment to be like, I need help. For sure.
Lauralee, I promised you I'd give you an opportunity to say what you really thought. Unabridged, however you want to say it. What would you say to that service advisor if you had his attention? What would your message to him be?
That's a hard question.
Oh, man.
Personally, I think
I'd
the
like
other
to know
service
the
advisors
why.
need to hear it.
Personally, I'd like to know the why of what did occur. Can you just break it down to me? What honestly did occur? But I will never, and I hope that if he goes to another shop or whatever, that he learns to follow policy. I will not allow the next group of service advisors or technicians to break outside of our policies. I just won't. And people might think I'm really bitchy for being in policy line, but I know what stepping outside of it does. There's a reason corporate America thrives a lot of times, and it's because everybody's in policy. And
it was
if there's
amazing.
You set forth, you just have to, you gotta hold to it. If it's what your shop needs, it's what your shop needs. It doesn't have to be some black and white, non-movable ever policy, but God, if you're supposed to put the VIN in, put the VIN in.
There's a lot of people that haven't learned that lesson, though. There's, Lauralee had made a post about policy on a couple different forums, including Changing the Industry and ASOG. And the responses that I saw from a lot of the shop owners was incredible to me. And the only thing that I can envision in the back of my head is a 3-ring circus going on in their shop because they think that Lauralee is a poor business owner or manager, or I'm a poor business manager or owner because we are such stringent people to the policy, and we stick to the policy. And if you don't like the policy, you can kick rocks down the road. And, it protects the employee. It protects the business. It makes things run smoothly. It everything, man. And so these people that are naysaying her, saying she's the problem with the industry or she's the problem with the technician issues and all of these things is madness to me. And it goes to show that we still have a lot of work to do. We do. And it goes to show how many shop owners, even the shop owners that are involved in our conversations on ASOG and so forth, and I don't post a lot there, I just watch, but they just don't know. And they really need to take it seriously, because if you do get in this situation, I can tell you right now that the shop that came back of ours is 1 in a million situation. I don't think that very many people would have come back from this.
You can't be scared though either, and I do think when you talk about staying inside of policy and procedure, I'm standing by that. There's a lot of fear. People are scared, I will lose my team. Let me tell you, it's better to have nobody on your team than a bunch of people who are going to take you down.
Right. Yeah. But that's the risk you take in business.
To stand in this empty shop with 100%. My one technician and my one new girl and make a flourishing week than to spend one more moment entrapped with 5 people who are doing nothing.
Yeah.
You cannot be afraid to hold to your guns. You just can't. There's a reason.
But the risk factor, I think, is, and that kind of goes back to my dad is an older conservative banker, is that, he didn't want to take unnecessary risk. He straight looked at my wife after he found out what we were going to set aside for marketing when she first took over, and he looked right at me and Lauralee and said, "You're going to go out of business." And I was just like, what do you say? Every dollar that we put towards marketing was $1 we took out of our daughter's mouth. Oh, but
I was terrified. I was like, "Oh, maybe he's right." I was like,
yeah. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is when you wake up in the morning, you take a risk. When you get in your car, you take a risk. When you walk down the steps, you take a risk. So how is this any different other than it can affect you financially, which anybody could come back from?
Employees want stability. And stability is, this is how I want you to act. And if you act this way and you do these things, then this is success. You don't want to have an employee who wonders if they were successful.
Right.
And if you don't have policy procedure, they don't know what to do. So they do what they think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to inspect that car. The customer, he doesn't look like he has any money. I won't inspect that car. Whatever. And employees, it's funny because probably 30 or 40% of the business we work with are on the verge of bankruptcy when they get to us. And we successfully walk them through and make them successful. So we don't make them, we help them, okay? But again, we influence, we help you understand things, we help you see things, we pick you off the ground, we keep you moving forward, etc. You do the work. No good coach or consultant can come do the work for you. So, but if you have policies and procedures and you have a successful business, financially successful, you have happier employees, better paid employees, better attitudes, everything. And so every business that we work with that makes it through our programs, those guys, their employees are paid more, they have better culture, etc. And you can't have employees that don't know what to do because they leave at the end of the day and they don't know if they were successful. So they come back with the questions in their mind and they're not as secure. Yep. And an insecure employee, you're going to lose at some point. So they had to get rid of employees, either because they didn't have any money or because they didn't feel that they were doing the job right, or other things. They had to end up getting rid of them. What if they had managed them properly in the beginning? They may still have all those employees. You can have employees for 20 years in this business. You just have to help them understand what doing the job right is, and then charge for it and be successful.
100%. Guys, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.